In a prior video, I talked about this screen, which is the owner screen. And in this topic, I'm going to go to the accounting screen where I've added some data. And what we're going to do is explain both the adding of the data and the account report that runs with this information. In this particular case, what we've got here is a new tenant that is being added, and the tenant himself on this date, either in this case it was an income or an expense, and this was marked as income, where the tenant from the drop-down list had a tenant deposits, and the deposit was for the cleaning deposit for a new lease that they're doing. The owner account was added for the income as far as who is receiving the money. If this was a bill that was being paid out as an expense, you would list who it's being paid to. If there's a receipt that came with the transaction, either from the expense where you paid some money or an income that you're giving a receipt to a tenant, that number would go here. As an expense, the first green field, which is the amount paid, would be something that the owner or the management company is paying out on the part for the owner. That information would be added here. As you can see in the line below, there was a 12-pound charge to replace keys that a tenant lost but not charged for. They left and did not leave the keys. They took them with them. So the owner got the expense for having to buy new keys to replace it because they allowed the tenant to leave without turning in the keys. And in this case, they had to have some keys made. And then they did a backside deposit or a receipt that showed in their bookkeeping where the receipt was logged in. In this case, this is the same situation for the receipt number for the tenant deposit. These would be somewhat sequential in that it's the bookkeeping note receipt of. And in this case, let's go down to the back of this. This was, remember, now we were having to receive a deposit. So this is now income. Now, if you'll notice that the income comes down here, the expenses here, and then they're summarized at the other side over here. Now, let's say, for example, the tenant was now going to pay his monthly payment. You have some options on the part of the property owner. If the property owner is receiving payments from a particular tenant, that information is also going to be put in the tenant record where it shows the tenant's payments or damage deposits over on that side for that particular tenant. You have the option as the management company to take in a lump sum of payments for this address, whatever they may be, and put them in and indicate in here what they actually are. And you'll notice if you type more in this field that it actually will hold. If you click on it, it will drop down and add in more information as far as if it's typed off the end. So that helps you to identify what these charges are. Now, this is really up to you as far as the way you take payments, because there's so many variations. I would say that if it's an income for a monthly rental, you would put it in here for this property for this month from the tenant that's the current tenant. Any other expenses and income or expenses that are going out for that particular location, for example, maybe there's a service fee for coming in and repairing a leak on a sink. That should go in here if it's being charged to the owner. If it's being paid out of a support fund or paid by the tenant, you can indicate that the tenant paid that by putting it in here so that it'll cover the expense and show against the receipt in the bookkeeping by the receipt ID of the person that paid it and who it was paid by. Now let's go look at the report. In the report, what we're going to do, before I leave here, let me go back and make sure that I say the type transaction, which is a separate screen. If you click on this, it'll take you to the type transaction, which will be income and expense. If there's an other, that particular screen will open up and allow you to put something other than income and expenses in here. So let's go ahead and go in and actually look at the report. When you come into the report screen, you can accept the current way that the screen is being sorted, and in most cases you will. If there was an incident where you wanted to modify this, you could modify it, and by doing this, what you would do is clear one of these out and then add in another one. For example, if you wanted to sort it, in this case, it's now in by property ID, owner account, and the item date of the item that was added in the inventory. And in most cases, that's acceptable. But if you need to resort it for some other reason, you can go ahead and resort it using this key. Now, when you come into the report, if that's acceptable, click Sort, and what it'll do is it'll make sure that the report is sorted in that fashion. Now, the report itself mimics all the information based on the address. There's a header for the address, a header for the date, the owner, and or a company, if it's the management company, is the date of the item. It is the type of transaction, income or expenses, like we saw on the last screen, and then all the fields that explain the expense with the receipts and invoice numbers and the amount paid or the amount received. So what will happen is you'll see, on this case, the green fields match and the orange fields match as far as where the expenses come from. And then at the bottom, it would be a grand total of all the items that are listed above. So if you're going to be sending an income and or expense report to the customer, or owner customer, or you're going to keep it in the management company, you could run these reports anytime. Obviously, you can use this with your bookkeeping service, or if you have internal bookkeeping, you can pass this information over to them, and they can make the appropriate inputs and come back in and put the receipt numbers that match the expenses and income within the bookkeeping system. If you have any other questions about this and the way it functions, you can go ahead and contact me. I want to cap off by saying, if you do want to do a find in here so that you can pick a date range, you can go ahead and pick the date range. There is a drop-down calendar to pick a date or pick a date range. Now, if you're going to do a date range, click in once, click in twice, and now you can edit this area in here to add the greater than or less than for the date start, and the less than or equal for the date that you want to close on. This is also explained. There's a place on the support site where there are general information topics about things for database design and database usage. There are videos in there that will explain this kind of thing. Okay, thank you for taking this video. If you need more help, contact me by email. Thank you.